My sister cannot have children, and now my brother-in-law is stalking me because I refuse to be a surrogate to carry a child with their DNA. Before we continue with the story, please take a moment to like the video and subscribe to the channel. Your support truly makes a difference and helps us grow. Now let's get back to the story. My sister and I are mirror images of each other in almost every way, down to the smallest mannerisms. For the sake of this story, let's call her Stacy. Tragically, our mother passed away during childbirth, and our father took on the immense responsibility of raising us on his own. Despite the challenges, he managed to provide us with a loving and supportive home. I've been in a relationship with Mike for the past 3 years, and things have been going well for us, while Stacy has been happily married to Jeff for 8 years, a relationship that seems to grow stronger with each passing year. Stacy has always had a deep-seated dream of becoming a mother. She often delighted in brainstorming wedding themes, baby names, nursery designs, and more, ever since we were little girls. Growing up, I was more inclined to lose myself in books and pursue my own interests, which were wide-ranging but never quite aligned with Stacy's maternal aspirations. I told her that while I couldn't carry her child, I would have no issue donating my eggs no matter how many she wanted. Her reaction was intense. She was furious. She yelled at me, accusing me of being envious and spiteful, claiming that it was a simple task. Her face turned red with anger. She had always talked about wanting more than 4 children, but I didn't want to bring that up. Would I be expected to do this every time? I started to feel conflicted, unsure of what to think. Ultimately, she told me that if I couldn't do this one thing for her, I could never be her sister. In a fit of rage, she left, knocking over and breaking a photo of the 2 of us that had been sitting on my mantel. I am currently working as a flight attendant, a job that allows me to explore different cultures and places while simultaneously trying to get my writing published, a lifelong dream of mine. On the other hand, Stacy has embraced a different path. She has never held a job. After we both graduated from college, she decided to become a stay-at-home girlfriend to her then-fiancé, who later became her devoted husband. She seemed content with the life they built together, focusing on their home and relationship. For quite some time now, I've been painfully aware of Stacy's struggles with trying to conceive. Despite spending a small fortune on IVF treatments, enduring countless doctor's appointments, and exhausting every possible medical avenue, she has been unsuccessful in her attempts. Her heartache was compounded by a miscarriage, a loss that left a significant impact, and she has not been able to get pregnant again since then. After 5 years of disappointment and heartache, Stacy and Jeff have started discussing alternate paths to parenthood. Stacy remains steadfast in her desire to have a child that shares both of their DNA, her exact words, and she has expressed no interest in adoption. About 3 weeks ago, Stacy visited me at home and we were casually lounging on the couch, watching Modern Family, a show we both adore and often watch together. She suddenly turned to me, her expression a mix of determination and vulnerability, and told me she needed to ask me something important, something she had been gathering the courage to say for quite some time. She asked if I would consider being her surrogate, which instantly sent a wave of unease through me. After a brief, awkward silence, I asked her to clarify what she meant, trying to process the weight of her request. She explained that she was asking me to carry her child, knowing full well that I understood the concept of surrogacy. It was clear she also knew I had never expressed any interest in having children of my own. I'll admit, I've never been drawn to the idea of parenthood, perhaps partly due to the circumstances of how we came into this world, with the shadow of our mother's absence always lingering. Since that day, she's been sending me countless photos of old vision boards and childhood diaries, each one filled with dreams and plans she once had. She's been accusing me of standing in the way of her starting a family, which has been incredibly hard to process. She keeps insisting that I don't understand the broader context and that this is a deeply sensitive issue for her. My boyfriend has been hesitant to offer any advice, mentioning it's a matter strictly between me and my sister, and he doesn't want to influence me in either direction. Update. 2 days later, I promised I'd update you, and here I am. Last night, while I was out, my dad called and invited me over for dinner to talk. I want to start by thanking all of you for your advice and comments. Some of you were not only rude to me, but also to my sister and boyfriend, but I still value the help. When my dad called, I assumed he had already spoken with Stacy, so I didn't ask what it was about. I know some of you might not be pleased with what I'm about to share, but I asked my boyfriend what he thought I should do if I went ahead with it. He told me that he loved me and would stand by me no matter what. but he made it clear that he wouldn't support me if he saw me being treated poorly by my sister, especially under pressure. I completely understand his position. Honestly, this is the longest period we've gone without speaking to each other, and I find myself on the verge of giving in to her demands just to mend the rift. But I'm torn. Is it truly wrong for me to refuse to be my sister's surrogate? Edit. I've read through all the comments, and I want to express my gratitude to everyone for their support and insights. It really helps to know that I'm not the villain in this situation. Yet I'd be lying if I said I wasn't tempted to just go ahead with it for the sake of our relationship. The growing distance between my sister and me is incredibly difficult to deal with, and I often find myself wanting to respond to so many of your questions to provide more clarity. Regarding the financial aspect, my mother's death wasn't from natural causes. It was due to a tragic medical error. My sister and I have substantial trust funds from the lawsuit my father filed against the hospital, so fortunately, money isn't a concern. Neither of us needs to worry about taking a break from work for 9 months or the costs associated with egg retrieval. Additionally, my sister's husband is also financially well off, so financial stability is not the issue here. The fact that the child would share our DNA and one of us would carry it, given that we're identical twins, seems to be a matter of her determination and desire for a biological connection. The core of her argument is, how can I expect to have a child if she can't? We were both involved in a devastating car accident years ago that left her unable to conceive. She and our father bore the brunt of the crash because they were seated in the front seats. As a result, she suffered severe complications with her reproductive system, and unfortunately, her body is no longer capable of carrying a child. I'm not entirely sure how everything went wrong, but I do know that it's not working, and surrogacy isn't an option for her due to these complications. It's been challenging to get her to discuss other possible routes in a way that helps me understand them better. I don't have children myself, which is why the doctors won't allow me to be her surrogate either. I really appreciate everyone's input on this delicate matter. We've always enjoyed watching football together as a family, and this Thursday, we're having a family dinner. If Stacy decides to come, I'm sure this conversation will come up again, and I hope we can find some common ground. I'm trying to prepare myself emotionally and mentally for whatever might unfold during our dinner. When we arrived at my dad's house for dinner that chilly autumn evening, Stacy and her husband were already there, sitting in the cozy living room with its warm, inviting ambiance. As we walked in, I greeted both of them with a friendly hello, but only my sister responded with a small smile. My brother-in-law exchanged a cold, hard look with my partner, and the tension in the room was thick, almost palpable, like a dense fog that filled the air. When my dad finally gathered us around the rustic wooden dining table, he cleared his throat and said, "Someone needs to speak up. We need to fix this before tomorrow night's game." The mention of the game was typical of him, as he's a die-hard football fan, always keeping track of every play and strategy. Haha. As he was about to go, my sister pulled me aside to talk on the porch and told him she would meet him in the car. She said she was just feeling stressed and that everything had been too much. She apologized for the things her husband had said to me. When we were alone, I told her we needed to talk things through and that she didn't have to apologize for his behavior. "You don't understand," she kept saying, urging me to reconsider. She told me that at a recent family dinner, her in-laws had cruelly joked about her being a murderer because of the child she lost. When I pressed her for more details, she revealed that when she asked her husband why he hadn't stood up for her, he replied that the joke was true. He made unsettling comments about how he was excited to see their child's face and that she could never make up for losing it. I took a deep breath and started by telling her that I had done some research into the matter. In addition to my original concerns, I now had even more questions swirling in my mind, like a storm of uncertainties. I needed to understand exactly what she was asking of me, so I began by inquiring what being a surrogate would truly entail. Was this something she was actually expecting me to do? As I voiced my concerns, she began to cry softly, her eyes glistening with unshed tears. When I told her I needed more information to make a decision, since I've never been able to carry a pregnancy to full term, I asked if she was aware that a doctor might reject me as a candidate for surrogacy due to my medical history. She nodded, saying she knew that and had already taken the step of sending both me and my brother-in-law to a specialized fertility center to undergo tests and present ourselves as a couple. After the insemination process, her plan was to have the clinic transfer me to her own trusted gynecologist so I could continue receiving the necessary care throughout the pregnancy. My father, trying to mediate, then intervened, saying that it was a risky and ill-advised idea to attempt becoming a mother by putting me in a situation that a medical professional wouldn't approve of. He didn't want to take sides, but it was clear he wasn't in favor of the plan, his concern evident in his furrowed brow. My brother-in-law, however, cut him off, telling him not to berate his wife with such ridiculous questions and insinuations. When my dad asked him why he was so uncomfortable with the idea of surrogacy, he snapped back with irritation, telling my father to talk to his self-centered daughter about why she can't help her sister. That comment shifted the whole mood in the room immediately, like a sudden gust of wind upending a calm day. When my partner, trying to lighten the situation, jokingly called me a surrogate, my brother-in-law lost his temper and began yelling at me, his voice echoing in the small room. My father, protective as ever, stood up and firmly told him not to treat his daughters like that in his house, his voice steady and authoritative. The tension erupted like a volcano, and my sister was crying, her sobs filling the room, begging me to do this favor for her. I was scared, caught in a whirlwind of emotions, unsure of what to do, and overwhelmed with the gravity of the situation. In a moment of desperation, I told her that I would swap places with her if it were possible, my voice trembling with sincerity. It was the first time I had ever voiced such a thought aloud, revealing my own vulnerability. After that, things quickly spiraled out of control like a runaway train. My brother-in-law became furious and, in his stubborn pride, refused to apologize, so my father, standing his ground, told him to leave, his voice carrying the weight of finality. She suggested that I carry the baby, and he was fully supportive of the idea, claiming that he could never look at a child and see both of their features. It seemed like she thought the idea was entirely hers, but the way she phrased it made it clear he had planted the thought. She told me she just wanted my help to make everything go back to normal, saying she hadn't seen him this excited since they were expecting their own baby. I tried to explain that what she was asking for wasn't right, and that things could never return to how they were before. She said she would call me later, but just then, he started honking the horn from the driveway, urging her to hurry to the car so they could get going. Update. 1 week later. Although I promised not to update again, so much has happened in the past week, and I find a strange comfort in putting all of this chaos down on paper. Many of you advised me to be more cautious around my brother-in-law, warning that he might become violent. I regret not taking your advice. I thought it was just a small issue, something I could handle because I knew my family so well. How naive I was. I can't even bring myself to consider donating my eggs so she could have a child with him, even though I feel like it might mean losing my sister. I looked into the egg donation process, as some of you suggested, and it turned out to be far more complex and demanding than I ever expected, involving legal agreements and physical procedures. What I truly want is for her to leave him, to realize her worth beyond the pressure he and his family place upon her. I will never help her have children with that man. In all honesty, I think I would rather be a surrogate for her as a single mother than help her carry his child or donate my eggs for their child. I had no idea how much shame and guilt his family had been placing on her, making her feel inadequate and incomplete without bearing his child. Every time my phone rings, I jump, knowing it could be her calling. I dread having to tell her I can't and won't do this, even though I'm terrified of losing her, of breaking the bond we've shared our whole lives. I really appreciate all the support you've given me, as it has been a comfort during this difficult time, but probably won't update any further. Please know that your advice and kindness have meant the world to me as I navigate this emotional turmoil. The day after he insulted me, my sister tried calling me back. I missed her call while I was in the shower, and when I tried calling her back, there was no answer. The day unfolded in an unusually calm manner, despite the tension lingering in the air from the previous incident. In the evening, we were on our way to my dad's house to watch the football game, which had become a family tradition. My sister arrived shortly after the game had started, her expression tense and determined. After that, I have to admit, I no longer felt safe at home. I haven't truly been back since I packed my things and went to my boyfriend's place. Even though I know I'll have to return eventually, I'm not sure I want to, especially now that my dad installed cameras and floodlights at the driveway and back door. Yes, I tried reaching out to my sister, but she didn't respond either that evening or the following day. Then I started noticing a black car following me one day and a red one the next. I know it might sound like I was paranoid, but I swear I would see them start following me. I drive toward the police station, as my dad had advised, and as soon as the cars saw the station, they would stop. My dad was asked to step outside to speak with her husband, Jeff. However, since the game was on, my dad was given the choice to either wait for a commercial break or come in and apologize in front of everyone who had witnessed his previous disrespect toward me. My dad refused, his pride evident, and that's when my sister took a deep breath and accused him of not being completely honest. Her voice wavered, the pain of years past reflected in her eyes. My dad got angry, his face turning red as he defended himself, insisting that she had misunderstood his actions. He pointed out that he never taught her to let a man treat her as if she were weak or insignificant. With a hint of regret in his eyes, he admitted, "Whatever I did to make you believe this was how a healthy relationship looked, I'm sorry for it." Without another word, she rushed out, her eyes filling with tears, leaving a trail of confusion and hurt behind her. After the game, I went outside to find that my car's front passenger window had been smashed and two of my tires were flat. Frustrated and bewildered, I managed to put two spare tires on it with some difficulty and had it towed into my dad's garage using his trusty old truck. My dad assured me not to worry, promising he'd fix the car and told me I could come pick it up whenever I had time. When he asked if I wanted to stay the night, I declined, feeling uneasy and restless. My sister didn't answer when I called her again, adding to my growing anxiety. "I can't believe things have gotten to this point." I texted her, adding a few extra words to keep some things private. "It should never come to the point where a family has to be torn apart to love a man." "That's exactly the problem," she replied. "You won't help me fix my family, which is already broken." Her words echoed in my mind, a reminder of the complex web of emotions and responsibilities entangled within our family. I tried calling her again after that, but she didn't answer, leaving me in a haze of frustration and helplessness. On my way home, I noticed a car following me, its headlights glaring in my rearview mirror. As I got a better look, I realized it was my sister's mother-in-law's car. She has a distinct car decal that I've never seen on any other vehicle, which was the only reason I recognized it. Feeling panicked, I called my boyfriend and asked him to come back to my house for support. The car followed closely as I pulled into my driveway, my heart pounding with unease. Luckily, just as my brother-in-law got out of his mother's car and tried to approach me, my boyfriend turned the corner, his presence a welcome relief. My boyfriend immediately started shouting at Jeff as he ran over to him. Jeff responded just as loudly, attempting to explain, "I just wanted to apologize. I only wanted to say I'm sorry." His voice held a hint of desperation, trying to mend the fractured relationships. After a brief exchange with my boyfriend, Jeff got back into the car with his mother, and they drove off, leaving a cloud of uncertainty behind them. It didn't seem intentional, but during the chaos, he did make contact with my boyfriend's car, although it was still drivable. The night ended with a heavy heart, the weight of unresolved issues pressing down on us all. On Sunday, I met up with a few friends for breakfast at our favorite cafe to celebrate a friend's upcoming wedding and discuss all the exciting plans for the bridal shower. The ambiance was lively, filled with chatter and laughter. As we were deep into conversation, the waiter approached our table looking concerned. He informed me there was an emergency, and my husband was supposedly waiting for me at the front. Confused, I excused myself, assuming there was some sort of mix-up and that he was referring to my boyfriend. To keep things discreet and avoid causing a scene in the bustling cafe, I approached him calmly and asked him to leave, or I would have to call my dad. He seemed remorseful, saying he only wanted to apologize and admit things had spiraled out of control. It was a peculiar situation, as we stood near the doorway where patrons politely tried to squeeze by, murmuring, "Excuse me." To make things less awkward, I suggested we step outside to have a word. The texts he's sending are disturbing. He's telling me things like how he plans to get me pregnant and keep me by his side forever, how he believes I'm the one who will give him a child, and that if I don't make things easier for him, we will both die before he stops. It's terrifying stuff. He's using different messaging apps to send these, as I blocked his number. I told the police about it, but they said they couldn't take action until he did something more concrete since they couldn't confirm it was him. I'm living in constant fear. On top of my usual safety precautions, my boyfriend now drives me to work. I'm having trouble sleeping, and my sister has completely cut off contact with me. I send her screenshots every time her husband messages me, but my father has urged me to stop, saying it's only hurting her. I told him that she needed to understand the abuse her husband is causing and that it's hard for me to believe she's still supporting him after everything that's happened. Outside, amidst the hustle and bustle of the street, he told me he regretted calling me that horrible name and tried to apologize. But his attempt to justify his behavior with tales of his hardships made me interrupt him, stating firmly that I didn't care. His aggressive behavior not only impacted my sister but everyone else around him, and it had become intolerable for me. He pleaded with me to reconsider, yet he acknowledged understanding my sentiments. I quickly distanced myself, urging him to leave, but as he reached toward my stomach in a gesture that seemed threatening, I reminded him that my father's surveillance was a complication and we could arrange another time to talk, or I would have no choice but to call the police. In a sudden move, he grabbed a fistful of my hair just as I tried to retreat back into the safety of the restaurant and shouted, "Don't you dare walk away from me!" What followed happened so rapidly that it's a blur in my memory, but it involved several concerned bystanders stepping in. He eventually fled from the scene before the police could arrive, but I did make sure to file a report. Just 2 days prior to this unsettling incident at the restaurant, he had attempted to approach me at an airport terminal, falsely claiming to be my husband and insisting there was an emergency. Despite his refusal to leave, the authorities intervened and took him into custody. He was released on bail, but since then, he has begun sending me the most vile, harassing messages. After his public outburst at my workplace, my sister finally left him, but she's been pleading with me to drop the charges, claiming she is now living with our father for protection. Despite the fact that my scalp still bears the marks from his violent grip and the minor cuts on my arms and neck from his aggressive actions, while strangers tried to intervene, she continues to insist that he didn't actually hit me at the restaurant. Her insistence weighs heavily on me as I try to navigate these tumultuous waters. I feel like I've lost my sister, and I don't know if I'll ever be able to recover from this deep sorrow. It's heartbreaking, especially since I've come to feel like I've completely disrupted my boyfriend's life. Although he hasn't said anything explicitly about it, I can sense the strain sometimes. Because of my overwhelming fear, he often has to cut his gym time short just to pick me up or take me wherever I need to go, whether it's for work or errands. He can follow his regular routine when he's away on business trips, which provides him some relief. But the truth is, we've essentially been forced to live together now. I enjoy his company and the comfort it brings, but I'm not sure if he feels the same way. I feel trapped, like I can't breathe, and everything around me seems to be falling apart, especially after the petty argument we had about the temperature setting of the air conditioning just the other day. Update. 1 week later. My brother-in-law is still stalking me, but I'm not sure how to even begin describing the unsettling nature of it. He's been making unsettling comments, even telling me he wants me to have his child, but I don't want to delve into the disturbing details. Unfortunately, things have only gotten more chaotic. The police informed me that the messages coming from unknown numbers couldn't be traced back to him. So against my better judgment, I unblocked him after some people suggested that might be a wise decision. Since then, he's reached out a few times from his actual number, insisting that we need to talk and come to some sort of agreement. Naturally, I haven't responded, refusing to give in to his manipulations. However, the repulsive texts from unknown numbers keep coming, each one more disturbing than the last. I constantly feel like someone is shadowing me, but I can't confirm it. Every time I go to Dunkin' for coffee, I get this unsettling sense that a blue car is tailing me, always lurking just out of sight. I've finally taken some much-needed time off work because I've reached my breaking point. I've moved in with my fiancé, leaving my apartment behind completely. A few days ago, we visited the grocery store together, and as I was walking, his hand brushed against my back from behind. I screamed and jumped, trying to get his attention, my panic palpable. He acted surprised, raising his hands and saying earnestly, "I'm sorry, I didn't mean to. I'll leave you alone." The bystander, seeing his sincerity, just accepted his apology and sent him on his way. I was left paralyzed, unable to speak or breathe, only able to gasp for help. I felt completely powerless, standing there in shock, my mind reeling from the constant stress and fear that has become my everyday life. My apartment was broken into and left in total disarray, with furniture overturned and belongings scattered everywhere. It felt like a violation of my personal space, leaving me feeling vulnerable and exposed. The following day, I received a cryptic message from an unfamiliar number that simply said, "It'll only get worse." This message sent chills down my spine, and I'm terrified right now. My sister is staying with my dad, and she insists that her husband isn't involved in any of this. She says he's been talking to her about getting away to a new place to clear his mind, as he believes he's been out of control and needs a fresh start. She added that things have escalated too far within their relationship, and he is seeking a change. I don't know how to make her understand that he's lying and possibly involved in the chaos surrounding my life. The police won't step in because they say he hasn't technically done anything illegal yet, which leaves me feeling abandoned by the system. I feel so hopeless, like the only way out is for him to seriously hurt me or for something worse to happen. I need help desperately. Since I'm in the United States, I'm hoping someone can share any legal advice that might make the police take this more seriously or help me protect myself in a meaningful way. I'm struggling to sleep due to heightened anxiety and fear, and I'm at a point where I don't even want to leave my apartment. Please, I need help. It was my sister. She had been ignoring my messages and hadn't been in touch with me. When I picked up the phone, she was crying. At first, I thought something had happened to our dad, so I asked her what was wrong. She said she knew her husband had been following me because she had been tracking him. She also mentioned that she had gone to the police and they were going to send someone to talk to me. We ended up talking for 5 hours. After the hair-pulling incident, something clicked in my mind and I started putting the pieces together. Update. This situation has been absolutely insane, but I have to say that Reddit has a special place in my heart for the support and advice I've received. I'll try to make this short. My boyfriend, who has been incredibly supportive through all of this, asked me why I was looking for apartments when he found out I was planning to rent one temporarily. Like an idiot, I told him I thought he needed his space back, and then he proposed to me right away, surprising me with his commitment and love. So yes, I'm engaged now, and moving into his apartment has helped me feel a lot safer. It's kind of a strange relief amidst the chaos. I posted about my brother-in-law's behavior on the advice subreddit, sharing how things had gotten out of control, hoping for some guidance. One day at the grocery store, he approached me unexpectedly, and I wasn't able to defend myself well, leaving me shaken. It was one of the worst moments of my life, feeling both physically and emotionally threatened. He's damaged my kitchen, wrecked my bedroom, and even broken into my home, each incident escalating in intensity. He knows how much I love my espresso machine and my mugs, making his actions feel personal and malicious. Yes, cameras were eventually installed, but I wasn't there when they were put in, leaving a gap in my sense of security. I had been hiding out in my fiance's apartment after all of this, trying to regain a sense of normalcy, when I received a surprise phone call that added yet another layer to this ongoing nightmare. She explained that she had called the police because she was genuinely concerned about my safety. At that moment, she expressed regret for adding so much stress to my life and confided that it wasn't an easy decision for her. She seemed torn between fear for my well-being and the realization that her actions had complicated the situation further. While she wanted to place all the blame on her husband, she admitted that part of her was surprised when I said no to his demands. She emphasized that she didn't care about the DNA issue. It was my brother-in-law who insisted on it, constantly pressuring her with his unreasonable demands. All she really wanted was for her family to be whole, to find some semblance of peace in the chaos. He'll be staying with me temporarily until her divorce is finalized and everything settles down. They have a prenuptial agreement, so the process shouldn't be too complicated, though I'm sure he'll make it difficult by contesting every small detail, as is his nature. This week marks my first flight back to work, and I'm eager to get back into my usual routine. Today, I had the chance to watch some amazing football games with my sister, dad, and fiancé, which was a much-needed break. I truly hope I never have to revisit this situation again. As a side note, I found out from my father that my brother-in-law had broken into my home, though it was supposedly an accident on his part. My father mentioned it after my sister had shared it with him in a moment of vulnerability. Apparently, she kept it to herself because she had to make up her mind about leaving him and was still grappling with the fear of the unknown. According to my dad, he told her she had no other choice and practically forced her to leave right then, highlighting the urgency of the situation. It doesn't seem like she resisted much, as if she had finally reached a breaking point. I'm not sure what to make of all this, but my dad believes that she just needed someone to tell her what to do before she understood the gravity of the situation. I'm relieved she finally made the right decision, and I hope she finds the strength to move forward. The next day, the police arrived at my fiance's apartment. After I gave my statement, they informed me that they would have an officer tail me in an unmarked car for a day, a precautionary measure to ensure my safety. If he followed me, he would be arrested, finally putting an end to the relentless pursuit. They told me not to panic if I thought someone was following me, but they didn't tell me which car would be tracking me, adding an unsettling layer of suspense to the day. True to their word, they apprehended him just 2 hours after I left my fiance's apartment. He was stopped and taken into custody as we arrived at the third place we were going to that evening, the restaurant where we had our date. I had a few more margaritas than I should have, trying to ease the tension of the day and perhaps celebrate the end of this ordeal. The detective informed me that I should expect a call from the DA's office, which I believe will happen tomorrow based on how things are unfolding. Honestly, I don't think they'll keep him for long, but I'm hopeful that since they have his phone, they'll be able to confirm that he was texting me, a crucial piece of evidence. This would likely make his charges more serious, ensuring that justice is served and that I can finally find some peace. Thank you so much for watching. If you enjoyed the story, don't forget to like the video, subscribe, and comment. Your support means the world to us. See you in the next video.